maybe even jerky type of guy. So that was a little bit of a, oh, wow, did I write that? Is that really inspired by me?
This is Tatiana Hollander with Screen Rant. We're here at Comic-Con 2024 with the celebrated author, Michael Connelly. How are you today, Mike?
I'm great.
I just listened to The Safe Man, which was awesome. But this isn't your first time working with Audible. It's not your first podcast even, although the previous one, Hollywood Murders, was more true crime. What is it that you like best about the audio experience?
Well, I'm a big consumer of it myself, so I'm drawn to it. And in the last few years, there's been a kind of renaissance in this genre of casting and dramatic podcasts, I guess you'd call them. And I've listened to a few of those and really enjoyed them. And, you know, so it gets the wheels turning. I'm a storyteller who, I guess my ego's big enough that I want to try everything, you know. So I write books, write TV shows. I had a couple films, and this I kind of knew would be a more intimate experience. You know, I could be involved in almost every aspect of it. So that's why I'm here, I think.
I love that. Now, you've been on quite the journey with just this story. Like, first it was published anonymously, then you published it under your own name, and now you've got this Audible original with it. Why this short story?
It's actually because one of the producers, who happens to be my daughter, Callie, discovered it among my calendar of things, catalog of things I've written. And she's a film school graduate and had this idea that, she wants to find her way into the business, and she thought this could lead to something. And I think the horror aspect or the paranormal aspect of it spoke to her more than my detective stuff. And so she brought it to me and said, let's try to do something with this. And she also is a big fan of dramatic podcasts and suggested a few for me to listen to, and we kind of went from there.
I love that. You have an amazing cast. Obviously, you and Titus go way back with Bosch, but Jack Quaid is also great, acting opposite him. Yeah. What was that casting process like? How involved were you? Not just with, of course, bringing in them as leads, but the rest of the supporting cast.
Well, you're right. I've known Titus for a long time. I knew he would be interested in doing it. And Titus, he seems to know everybody. And so I also didn't say this to him, but I said, if we start with Titus, he can reach out to people. And that's what he did. So he was a key part of, reaching people, but also when you go to someone and say, we already have Titus Welliver, they want to be involved. And, and then once we got Jack Quaid, then anyone we asked to be involved, we got them to be involved. So yeah, from top to bottom, really interesting and a great cast.
You co-wrote the script for the podcast, but how different is it hearing those words come to life in this format? Like, was there any moment that made you recontextualize the character, like playing it back?
A little bit with the role Titus played, because he plays a writer. So that originally was me somewhat writing about myself. And then when I heard it, I was hoping I'm not that kind of a tough guy, kind of impatient, maybe even jerky type of guy. So that was a little bit of a, oh, wow, did I write that? Is that really inspired by me? So that was a little bit of a surprise. But it was really good. The way it worked the way it should in the story. But otherwise, just up and down line, really good performances. Even just like little words really struck me as great. Like, I have one child, a daughter. There's a daughter-father relationship in this, and at one point she gets very frustrated with him and goes, "Dad," and just the way she delivered that line, I thought, wow, that is so real. And I've heard that in that tone before many times. And so there's little things here and there are just so good.
You mentioned kind of like the fluidity between the supernatural horror and then the detective thriller that really is your bag. Mm-hmm. How much did you have to get out of your comfort zone for that aspect of it, the supernatural part?
It was a jump. I wrote the short story, as you said, anonymously. It was like write something you're not known for. So under cover of being anonymous, I also knew I could just throw it out there, and if it didn't work, maybe they won't guess it was me. And so that's where it started. I was really happy with what I ended up with. We're talking about 10 or 15 years ago. And so that to expand it, I brought in a friend who's another writer who has always been, he's the guy I go to and give him a manuscript before anyone sees it to tell me what he thinks. So he's got a good sounding board for what I do. And so we went from there. And, it's one thing to be known for something, but it's not like your only interest. I mean, I love reading Stephen King, things like that. I mean, that's the kind of book I prefer reading since I write the other kind. It's like you want to get away from your work if you're going to read for pleasure. So it was a challenge, but it was also an exciting challenge. Like I really got into it very quickly.
Now, of course, Bosch novels are still killing it on screen. We've got Bosch Legacy, we've got Lincoln Lawyer. So your television universe is going strong. But do you hope to expand your Audible universe now? Might we see more original stories here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's fun to do. It's immediate and it's quick. I mean, everything else in Hollywood takes forever. And one of the things I really liked about this was, I had to write the scripts. We had to write the scripts. That was probably the longest part. But once we said, let's do this, let's try to do this, I went off and wrote those. And then once we had scripts, it went really fast, and, the whole thing is recorded. I think it was in 7 or 8 days. And so it's a way of storytelling that can move quickly, and it not necessarily in the story, but I'm thinking about this for future stories. It gives you the chance to be very contemporary. You can reflect off of things that are happening in the world right now, and then they're going to hear it pretty soon afterwards. So it has that connection that I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Bosch Legacy, you and Titus have been reinventing the wheel for over a decade now. Mm-hmm. How much longer do you see that iteration of the story going?
It's hard to complain that we've put together 10 seasons, and in the streaming world, nothing has lasted that long. And so we kind of know that how long can this last? All good things come to an end. The one thing that we hope is that we know when we're doing the last season and we can write to an ending. And so, because also in streaming, this is going to be on that platform. Mm-hmm. Hopefully forever, for decades at least. And so you want it to have bookends. You want it to have a beginning and an end, and that's what we're hoping we get the chance to do that. And whether it's next season or in 5 seasons, I already feel like I'm the luckiest guy going to have 10 seasons already. So whatever happens, and I'll be happy if we can end it and tie everything up.
Finally, the Wonderland Murders and the Secret History of Hollywood's getting a docuseries.
Right.
What is it that really fascinated or terrified you most about that case in particular?
That people got away with murder. It's a story that's been around a long time. I mean, I was a newspaper reporter in Los Angeles before I do what I do now, and it was a case that was big and important, and there's always things unanswered. I also lived in the neighborhood where it happened, and so it's got a personal curiosity, but also on a greater scale about unrequited justice. Some people went to jail for small amounts of time, but it was just the bloodiest crime possibly in LA history. And there's people that were never named, never brought to justice, never accused. And, so to explore something like that, and because of what I do, I somehow have been given really good access. So we could go to the people that were very vitally involved in the investigation as so even suspects and even witnesses, and kind of pull it all together in a comprehensive way that I don't think was ever put together before. I mean, there's even been books written about it, but the books were written before the story was over. And so we kind of bring it all together, and there's some very interesting characters and questionable characters, and it was really fun to make.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see that version of it now that we've already got the podcast. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and I hope you have a great Comic-Con.
Oh, thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much.